Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson,
I'm Brandon Graham.
and we are living the line. And classroom rules. I went last time, so this time, Brandon, it is your time to show and tell. I hear
So
you're going to give us something that you have some kind of personal experience with.
yeah, I'm digging through a box of old weird comics here, and I just came across what I think it's either my first or second thing I've ever published. So something
Oh,
I noticed I mentioned a lot is Joe White, who did this series called Twilight X with the Antarctic Press. So I think of as like, and he's the first kind of professional comic artist that I met as a teenager.
hmm.
I had older friends that kind of brought me to meet him in across the state in Washington, and he was like doing this Twilight X comic for Antarctic Press, and we crashed his place, and I probably told the story much before. He had a motorcycle parked in his living room and took out a gun and unloaded it when I first met him. So it gave me a very distinct idea of comic artists as badasses. But when I met him, he was doing this Twilight X series that I'm still a big fan of and have probably multiple copies of now. And I just dug out this one that is my first, maybe my first published work, where I did this very cartoony drawing of his characters here.
Nice. How did you hand deliver that to him?
Uh, I might have mailed it to him. Yeah, maybe I did this while we were hanging out at one point. Yeah, because I have a bunch of this box is in we probably to a lot of there's a the Now Comics Terminator in here. I don't know if you remember. It was before Terminator 2 came out, and they had this totally different idea of what the future was like. This is a series that I'm probably going to pitch to you soon, which is reprinting the Universe So Big series that I did.
Interesting. I never heard of the universe so big. Is that you?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is, and I think this still holds up. So I did this when I was 24, and it's 100
Hmm.
pages. And only I drew 3 issues, and only 2 issues were published. So it's just sitting in a box. On my Patreon, I've been slowly scanning them, but I think that and I did a book of short stories called Escalator that I think that the two of them collected together would be really cool.
Interesting. It's funny that that actually looks like some of the backgrounds to King City in a certain way, and that character looks a little bit like Eugene from Rainland Cameras.
Yeah. Oh, I should mention that this comic is where the Royal Boiler that I reference on
Ah,
most social media names are come from, because this is there's these two siblings named Mari and Jackson Royal who uh, are basically like robot scientists, and they create this thing called the Royal Boiler.
right.
Um, Jackson kind of looks like a '90s R&B singer, but yeah, I think I read these again recently, and I think they're worth getting back in print. I've got some issues of Critters in here, the
Oh yeah, one of my
furry
first
anthology, which
yeah, one of my
demographics
first
probably.
comics.
Oh,
My
nice.
or I mean, first comics that were not tie-ins to existing things.
The
Xanadu.
Xanadu.
Oh my goodness.
It's a Vicky Wyman unicorn comic. There's Fun and Perils in the Trudyverse, which is a really fun. It's David Hahn who went on to do Fight Club at DC Comics,
Huh.
and it's his kind of take on. It's like his love. It's like Texas Love and Rockets, basically.
There's an amazing amount of stuff that Antarctic Press did at various
Yeah.
times.
This one kind of. So here's an ad for the Universe So Big comic,
Oh wow.
which of course we'll have to reprint.
Yeah.
And this is a copy of their furry anthology Furlough, which Antarctic just started again. This is Radio Comics, which is a split off of Antarctic. And this is just a big old swastika cover, which was much more popular in the 90s and now just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, there's probably a not insignificant overlap between furries and fascist fetishists.
Well, there's a big military connection. I blame Steve Blasie's Albedo. This is a Derek Kirk Kim Ninja High School cover.
Oh my gosh.
So Derek Kirk Kim, I know that James Kochalka started at Antarctic, and so there's a lot of people there. And then, of course, I have Weasel in here, the Dave
I've never.
Cooper.
Now that's one I've never seen before.
Oh, here's a little thing which is fascinating. There's this comic in the back by Pat McEwen called No Escape, and it doesn't run up and down like a. It doesn't read like a normal comic. It's floors in a building that
Right.
go. this way, and characters will sometimes go up elevators and go other ways. I actually have a printed out version of it that is just like a long scroll that I used to have hung on my studio wall.
Fantastic.
So
I see.
the one to blame for the military furry comics is Albedo.
Oh man, I saw the Albedo ad that constantly ran in the Comics Journal in the late '80s. Haunted me.
Oh, certainly. Oh, at some point we should do a video on Rio, by the way. It's a fantastic Western comic.
Wow.
I made the bold claim recently with a friend of mine that I like Rio more than Blueberry, which I stand by.
So is this explicitly a box of weird comics, or this is like things that have
Oh no,
you've
this is
kept around?
just a random box that I don't, if this kind of thing is enjoyable to people, we could just talk like what strange
What's in my
comics.
box?
Here's a Feral Dalrymple alphabet zine. So yeah, this is something that probably needs to be sorted because I actually have like sections. My boxes are sectioned off in much more like this is a manga box and so I can find things again. But yeah, there's a shorthand version of a book that you didn't know I'm about to pitch to you too. Also, so that's
Well, you know, there's a whole swath of comic reader that doesn't regard a periodical anymore as a legitimate thing to keep around. You know, if it's not in a book, it doesn't exist. You know, and so if you happen to be one of those people, you know, all of a sudden it's 2020, and you're like, oh my gosh, how come I never had I never heard of oh, what's her name, Shelley? Sorry, Sherry Flanagan,
oh
her
right.
strip Trots and Bonnie. You know,
Yeah.
if you're a person who doesn't collect periodicals or doesn't collect things, you can just be like, Trots and Bonnie, where did that come from, right?
Yeah, there's a
Um,
ton of things that are never collected.
right, exactly, and just probably will never be collected for various reasons.
Certainly. Yeah, and I understand that there's people that just want to have like comics as graphic novels on a big bookshelf and everything, but yeah, you get a different experience. I'd actually argue that Frank Miller's Ronin works much better in issues than as a collection. I
Hmm.
don't know why that is, but I feel like it's a better experience when you're like have a little pause between it chapters.
I saw a retailer complaining on Instagram about serialization of uh, ginseng roots and saying
Oh,
basically like that why announce the book is going to have 60 extra pages in the last issue of the comic that you just bought. And it's an interesting thing because to me, I'm looking forward to the book Ginseng Roots, but the series itself is awesome. So like, why would you trade one of those experiences for the other? You know, if you get all
right.
of this different back matter, or essays or letters or things that are going to not make the cut or typos. I mean, hell, you know, anything
Well,
that's
that one's a
different.
really interesting one too, because people like super Craig Thompson fans are going to want to own both because he's actually going to change things from the like I talked to him a little while back and he's a crazy person because he's like unhappy with certain things and he's like I think I can fix it and do it better and I was like like I was really impressed by the ending of the final issue and I think he wants
Yeah.
to pad it out and add more context and add more stuff to it. So I think it'll be a really cool thing to have multiple editions. Like I think I have 3 copies of Ghost in the Shell here just because there's
Right.
like 4 pages that are slightly tweaked different. And it's just really interesting to see what a different reading experience it is when you when you nudge things like that.
Right. Yeah, and I hope that you're not saying that the version of Ginseng Roots that comes out eventually is going to have a 4-page VR sex scene on a boat.
Only hope.
I have to say, there's not very many graphic novels that wouldn't be improved with that scene added to them.
Oh yeah, we should mention the Ghost in the Shell. Weirdly, it's just like a cyborg. I'm sure most people watching this know, but it's just like a cyborg cop future thing. And then in the just in the graphic novel, there's just 2 pages of just explicit hardcore sex in there that that does not advance the plot in any way. It doesn't. If anything, it hinders things because then you're like, where's the rest of this? Did this just suddenly jump the shark and are we in a pornographic comic all of a sudden? But no, it's just he decided that was necessary and God bless him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it derails things because you're looking for the continuation of the scene. later in the
Yeah.
book. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think about that sometimes in relationship to serialized versus released or compiled versions of books. I think it's very funny, for instance, that all of the Charles Dickens editions that come out all use, the editorial standards that they use to compile the quote unquote finished text are just all over the map,
Oh,
and there's not really a lot of like regard for the fact that essentially you issued multiple products. Each one of these is its own kind of statement, and they sort of interact with each other. For me, I think if you're going to make the ultimate edition of something, you want to, have that awareness as you do it. We've really gotten far afield from your first comic. I apologize.
no, no, it's good to see where the conversation takes us, and something I want to mention before they call
Yeah.
this a day is the like so many of the things I've been doing in recent years has been Moonray and the diary book and everything, and I'm thinking more about the excitement of doing things serialized, because personally I think of it as like you go along for the journey, and if you love it enough, you also want the trade, and at that point you can be like pass the issues on to someone else or put them in a quarter bin or something. But I want to have the big printed edition of it, or maybe if you're obsessive about certain cartoonists, you can have like I want both editions because there's three separate extra pages. But
Right.
I think it's a really fun thing working in printing and having the option to sell things in multiple versions to different people.
Yeah, well, it's like these little private messages, We still, I still cling to the miracle of print that you can make something, and through an autographic reproductive process, somebody can hold a version of that in their hand that shows the way that your hand moved across the paper.
Yeah, I had a thought. So the other day, me and the Mrs. Casey we went to a bunch of like old toy and magazine stores looking for stuff. And I had the thought when we left, I was like, this is like going to a gallery without the like pretension and without the feeling of like, oh, um I need to give each piece of art its adequate time. Like if you're in a comic store, it's much more honest. You're like, don't like this book, don't like this book. Oh, this one's good and it's affordable. You'd be like, $4, I can own this piece of art. And I like it so much more than it's going to keep me out of the gallery scene, basically, that realization.
Fantastic. Well, stay in comics where you belong.
Sounds
And once you've bought Brandon's first published work, I hope that you will buy Brandon's latest published work, which is available in the previews catalog right now. Surviving on Mars, coming in September, and it'll be in bookstores a couple weeks after that. And what was that price we settled on?
I think it was, are we at 14.99
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic.
for 116 pages, I believe.
Yeah, and hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy this video.
Yeah, thanks for watching.